Welcome to Scale Model Basics. I'm Aaron Skinner. Now, have you ever considered replacing a kit part or detail with some resin, say a cockpit, engine, wheel wells, but you're nervous, you're anxious, because you're not sure your skills are up to it? Well, get over it. You've got the skills. They're just basic modeling skills employed in a slightly different way. Now, first of all, why would we do this? Why would you take the trouble to remove a kit part and replace it? Well, here's a really good example. This is an Airfix 1/72nd scale Avro Vulcan, not the new toolkit that came out a couple years ago. This is the 1970s vintage kit. And if we look at the main gear bay here, well, to describe it as Spartan, bit of an insult to Spartans. I mean, I've driven across Nebraska and seen more detail. Fortunately, to fix that problem, 2 mics gives you these really nice resin replacements that allow you to get the details that are in that gear bay without having to resort to scratch building. They also give you a nose gear bay for the same reason. The other thing these do, in addition to giving you those details, is replicate the dimensions of those gear bays rather than the kit parts, which are just kind of like too small and too shallow. So, first steps first, we need to cut out the kit parts that need to be replaced. So looking at the instructions, they give very clear details about what needs to be removed with these red lines. So I'm going to start by cutting out the gear bay itself. To do that, I'm going to drag the tip of my knife along the edge of this sill and gradually deepen that ledge and thin the plastic along it. Now you could remove these parts with a cutting disc and a rotary tool, but you have to go slowly so as not to melt the plastic, and you have to be very careful that you don't slip and cut deep into the part you're trying to avoid damaging. For the corner here, I'm going to use the pull saw because I can reach this corner a little easier with it, and it'll cut through cleanly. It is actually starting to open up. So to make it a little easier for me to get to a couple of sections with the knife or the saw, I'm going to just use my clippers to remove part of this plastic that's going to be excess anyway. As you can see, there's most of it out. I need to remove a bit more of this back wall, but I need to be careful because I need to preserve part of this upper skin and cut up here, but still leave a little ledge of that. So I'm going to take a little bit more care with it. Before I take out the last little couple sections, I'm going to clean up the edges of the bay with a sanding stick so that I can get a real handle on exactly what it is I need to remove. This has the added advantage of thinning this edge a little bit, which needs to be done too to better replicate the skin of the aircraft. Got these knobs sanded down to a point, so now I'm using the back of my knife to just take the rest of the way down. Also useful for getting into some tight spots where you can't get a sanding stick to thin the edges. Make sure that you are modifying the part per the instructions. Remove any plastic it tells you to remove. Here's the bay that's all opened up and ready for the replacement part. Before we attach the bay to the wing, we need to remove the pour plug from the separate wall. I'm going to use a pull saw and cut as close to the pour plug as possible, staying away from the edge of the part. I'll clean that up with files and sanding sticks. As you can see, that saw created quite a bit of excess resin and dusty stuff. It's not the greatest thing to breathe in. It can be kind of a respiratory irritant. So it's a good idea to wear a mask. Clearly, I'm not doing that right now, but that's because I need to be able to talk to you guys clearly. But if you do this yourself, particularly if you use a rotary tool to do it, make sure you're masked up before you start. And it's a good idea to wear eye protection as well. After removing the pour plug, just need to sand this edge clean. There's not a lot of sanding here. If I needed to minimize the dust, wet sanding is the best way to do that. I don't have a lot to do here, so I'm just going to go ahead and take care of it. The main thing is to make sure that you maintain the shape of this part because it fits up under the top of the wing, so it needs that curve.
It's official, Paint Award-winning figures is now out and available at your local hobby store, your favorite newsstand, or your favorite bookstore. Go there, find it, buy it. You don't want to wait on it. If, however, you'd rather order it direct from us, you can do that from the link below. Inside this magazine, this special issue, you are going to find stories from 10 different authors, all of them excellent figure modelers: Joe Hudson, Matt Mrazek, Anya Shetnina, and more. It's 100 pages of invaluable insights and advice for painting your next figure model. Get on it, get it now. And don't forget, you can subscribe to FineScale Modeler magazine, where you'll get 6 issues a year full of how-to stories from some of the best modelers around the world, and access to subscriber-only content on FineScale.com. Go to this link to subscribe and you'll get a special introductory offer for our YouTube viewers.
With the inner wall cleaned up, it's time for me to attach it. I'm going to use some thick super glue and make sure that it is secure in its place. Just want to be sure I get some glue on the inside of the joins. Squeeze it back together. This thick glue will also help to fill any gaps that might be between the parts. And I'm just going to leave that to set up. While that glue's drying, I'm going to go ahead and remove the section that needs to be removed from the lower fuselage. So I've removed both sections, and now we have a bay that is ready for the resin part. So when you're fitting parts like this, sometimes the manufacturers might have gone to give you a little help. And in this case, these tabs on either end do fit against the edge of the wing here to align it front to back. You're helped by the fact that there's this resin piece here, which fits up under the lip here. So if you can align that correctly, what you'll find out is that the rear wall of the resin bay aligns with the rear of the cutout, and so there's a little overhang at the front. I'm going to tack it in place with super glue so that I can get the location done, and then I'm going to reinforce it with epoxy. Now I'm going to secure it with epoxy. The epoxy has the added advantage of filling any minor gaps that might be around the piece. Also guarantees it's probably not coming out of the model anytime soon. And for those of you keen of eye, I should be wearing gloves for this. I apologize for not doing that. So while that's curing, there's a little bit more plastic I have to remove. Test fittings showed that the bay interfered with this inside of the upper wing. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip a big section of it out so that it fits cleanly. And that now fits perfectly fine. And further test fitting shows that this is not quite fitting where it needs to, so I'm going to have to remove just a little bit of the plastic here. And now we have a nice fit. So we're going to glue it all together. Typical of an older kit, this one has some flash. I'll get that all cleaned up before I start gluing parts together. So obviously this is not a quick process. It takes time and patience to get this done, but it doesn't take anything beyond what you already know how to do. You know how to use a saw, you know how to use a knife blade, you know how to use super glue and epoxy. Just need to take your time, measure, make the cuts, sand, and then you're good to go. Now all I need to do now is repeat the process for the other main gear bay and the nose gear bay, and I'll have a really good looking model. As you can see, the results speak for themselves. The difference between the old featureless kit main gear bay and the resin one is just, they're worlds apart. There's just so much more detail there, and it's just gonna look so much better on the finished model than the kit part does. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.